It happened at 2:43 in the morning, in that narrow window before dawn when the sky is still completely dark and the world feels suspended between night and day. Not during peak hours, not when the system is fully alert, but at a time when response is slower, visibility is limited, and routines are operating at their most vulnerable state. The impacts were not scattered. They were not symbolic. They were precise, deliberate, and focused on a single objective. Within minutes, one of the most critical pieces of national infrastructure stopped functioning, not partially, not temporarily, but completely. 3 ballistic missiles reached their targets in rapid succession. The first impact struck the main terminal complex, the central node that coordinates everything from passenger movement to operational control. The second impact hit the runway, the long, carefully engineered surface that every aircraft depends on for safe arrival and departure. The third impact detonated within a fuel storage area, igniting a fire that immediately began to spread and intensify. These were not random targets. They represented the 3 core systems that allow an airport to function. Remove one, and operations become difficult. Remove all 3 simultaneously, and the system collapses. That collapse happened in minutes. The terminal, which under normal conditions processes millions of passengers annually, sustained structural damage that disrupted its internal systems. Power, communication, and coordination mechanisms that keep everything synchronized were either damaged or forced offline. The runway, a stretch of nearly 4 kilometers designed to handle the full weight and speed of large aircraft, now had multiple impact craters along its surface. Even a single crater can make a runway unsafe. Multiple craters make it unusable, and the fuel storage infrastructure, which supports every aircraft that lands or takes off, was burning. Not a contained fire, not a minor incident, but a large-scale fuel fire producing a column of smoke and flame visible across the surrounding region. At 2:43 in the morning, the airport was not empty. International airports do not shut down completely, even in times of conflict. Night operations continue, though at reduced levels. Cargo flights operate during these hours to maintain supply chains. Medical evacuation flights move when necessary, regardless of time. Military logistics aircraft often preferred nighttime operations to reduce exposure. At that moment, aircraft were on the ground. Some were being prepared for departure. Others had recently landed. Ground crews were active, moving equipment, coordinating loading procedures, managing fuel systems. The strike intersected with that activity, amplifying its impact beyond infrastructure alone. The timing was not accidental. A strike during daylight would have produced visibility, faster response, and potentially reduced long-term disruption. A strike at 2:43 in the morning produces confusion, delays in emergency response, and a higher likelihood of compounded damage. Darkness limits situational awareness. Reduced staffing slows coordinated action. Fires burn longer before they can be effectively contained. The combination of these factors creates a window where damage is not just inflicted, but allowed to expand. The fire in the fuel storage area became the defining visual element of the strike. Aviation fuel burns at extremely high temperatures, and the volume stored in such facilities is measured in millions of liters. Once ignited, it cannot be quickly extinguished. Standard firefighting systems are not sufficient for fires of this scale. Specialized resources are required, and those resources take time to deploy, especially when multiple incidents are occurring simultaneously. The result was a sustained fire, producing a column of smoke that rose into the night sky and remained visible as dawn approached. From surrounding areas, the scene was unmistakable. Residents woke to the sound of impacts, followed by a glow on the horizon, where there should have been darkness and distant airport lights. The familiar visual pattern of the airport at night was gone. In its place was fire. That visual shift from routine to disruption carried immediate psychological weight. It signaled that something fundamental had changed. An airport is not just a transportation hub, it is a system of connection. It links a country to the outside world, enabling movement of people, goods, and information. It supports economic activity, diplomatic engagement, and emergency response. When that system stops functioning, the effects extend far beyond its physical boundaries. The immediate operational impact was clear. Flights could no longer land or take off. Aircraft already in the air had to be diverted. Scheduled departures were canceled. The flow of passengers stopped. But the deeper impact lies in what that interruption represents. For millions of people, the airport is the primary means of entering or leaving the country. It is the route through which critical supplies arrive. It is the pathway for evacuation in times of crisis. At 2:43 in the morning, the pathway was removed. The logistical consequences began to unfold almost immediately. Supply chains that depend on rapid air transport were disrupted. High-priority shipments, including medical supplies and technical components, could no longer arrive through their primary channel. Alternative routes exist, but they are not equivalent. They require more time, more coordination, and often involve greater risk. The efficiency of the system is reduced and its vulnerability increases. The international dimension added another layer of complexity. Thousands of foreign nationals rely on that airport for travel. Governments must now assess how to support their citizens, considering options that are less direct and more constrained. Sea routes require specific infrastructure and security conditions. Land routes depend on geography and political agreements. Each alternative presents challenges that did not exist when the airport was operational. At the same time, the process of assessment began. Authorities needed to determine the extent of the damage, the feasibility of repairs, and the timeline for restoring operations. Runway repair is not a simple task. It requires clearing debris, filling craters, and ensuring structural integrity to support heavy aircraft. Terminal repairs involve restoring power, communication systems, and physical structures. The fuel fire must be extinguished before any work can begin in that area. Each of these steps takes time, and they cannot be rushed without compromising safety. The psychological impact continued to develop alongside the physical and logistical effects. People adapt to difficult situations when they believe there is a way out, when they feel that conditions, however challenging, are temporary. The sudden loss of a primary exit route changes that perception. It introduces a sense of confinement, of limited options. This is not just about movement, but about perception of control. As dawn broke, the full extent of the situation became visible. What had been partially obscured by darkness was now clear. The damaged structures, the disrupted runway, the ongoing fire. The airport, once a symbol of connection and movement, was now a site of disruption and uncertainty. From a strategic perspective, the strike demonstrated a specific approach. Instead of focusing on a single target, it targeted a system. By hitting multiple critical components simultaneously, it achieved a level of disruption that is difficult to reverse quickly. This approach requires detailed planning, accurate targeting, and an understanding of how complex systems operate. It is not just about causing damage, but about creating conditions that persist. The choice of targets reflects that understanding. The terminal represents coordination and control. The runway represents physical movement. The fuel infrastructure represents sustainability of operations. Together, they form the foundation of the airport's functionality. Disrupt all three, and the system cannot operate, regardless of the condition of any single element. As the hours passed, attention shifted from immediate response to broader implications. The strike was not an isolated event. It was part of a larger context, a sequence of actions and reactions that define the current situation. Each new development adds to that context, influencing decisions and shaping outcomes. What happens next depends on multiple factors: the speed and effectiveness of repair efforts, the availability of alternative infrastructure, the decisions made by authorities, and the actions of other actors involved. Each of these elements interacts with the others, creating a dynamic and evolving situation, but one fact remains constant. At 2:43 in the morning, in the dark hours before dawn, a series of precise impacts transformed a critical system. The runway was no longer usable. The terminal was disrupted. The fuel was burning. And the connection that millions depend on was suddenly, completely, and unmistakably cut off.